Good morning, good afternoon, you lovely people. I hope you're all doing really well. Welcome back to the show where we're going to bring you the latest AI news and share our views. Right, before we dive into it, you know what I'm going to ask. Please hit that like, subscribe, do those amazing things. Say hello in the comments. We really appreciate your support. We're a young channel and all your support is hugely appreciated. I cannot stress this enough. It literally costs you nothing, so hit that like. Will, let's dive into the story. We're going to share our views on it and talk about it. So let's do it.
Let's do it. We're back to, yesterday we had a very weird story, so definitely check that out. That was about Albania's AI minister. We're back to something slightly more standard, a standard conversation in the AI world, but one that's close to our hearts. Here it is. The title is Large Language Models Get All the Hype, but Small Models Do the Real Work. And this is just an opinion piece, a thought piece by the Wall Street Journal. But it's actually, to be fair, got a lot of things that I agree with in it, and I know you do as well, Ben, because this is something that one of the areas that we are incredibly focused on, building out what we call sovereign AI, private AI, local AI, whatever you want to call it, but it's the AI that isn't owned by the corporations, and it is in control and sovereignty of you as an individual. And small models are a great way to do this. The crux of this article, before we go into small models, is that large language models are the ones that capture all of the headlines, which is fair enough because they are pushing the capability barrier of AI in many senses of the word. We're always hearing about new models coming out. They're breaking this benchmark, that benchmark. It's a little bit, interestingly, like back in like the 80s and 90s, computer manufacturers were always talking about, megahertz, gigahertz, how fast are our processors, and that's sort of where we're at now with AI. We're coming out of this sort of era where we're in a race to top benchmarks. We're sort of getting that out of our system, because I bet you don't even know, like, I know you use a Mac, Ben, I do as well. I bet you don't know the processor speed of your computer.
But Will, that's so true. Now, back in the day, it was all about, I've got a 1.5 whatever the measure was,
gigahertz
this was
processor,
gigahertz, and then this one's a 1.8, this one's a 2.2 joule gigahertz, and it was all those sort of benchmarks, which actually we now know is a bit of an irrelevance.
Well, I was going to say, what is interesting about that era is that people started to realize actually it's not the processor speed, or it's not, in AI's case, the benchmarks that it achieves. It is far more about the end user experience and what we're getting out of it. And this is the same, and this is the crux of the article, is that these AIs that are top in the charts, they're great, they're magnificent, they're very clever. However, actually in the real world at the moment, it's the small language models that are doing all of these tasks. And this is backed up by big companies. For example, Meta only uses its largest, most clever AI models to transfer knowledge to smaller, lightweight, specialized models in something like their ad delivery system. And that's because large language models, the large ones, are just too costly to do. This is repeated time and time again. And this is also something that we're looking at massively, is that actually you don't need the biggest, the greatest, the most intelligent model to do most of the work that you do. For example, again, GPT-5 just came out with OpenAI, but they also released GPT-5 Nano, which is a tiny model. It's not, we don't know exactly how big it is, but comes at a fraction of a cost, 10 cents per million tokens. And I bet you will do a lot of the work that people will need it to do day to day.
And Will, just for context, what is 10 cents per million tokens? For context, what's the bigger model cost?
$10.
There you go. So that's
$10
for the audience to get that context.
And GPT-5 is cheap, by the way. They've done that at a cost. If you look at Anthropic's Claude Opus, which is the equivalent, if you like, of GPT-5 in terms of benchmarks, that's, I believe, $75 per million output tokens. So very, very expensive. But you don't need Opus, just like you don't need GPT-5. GPT-5 Nano probably would do quite a lot of the work the average user would need. So no, it's a very interesting thing. I think it's something that I would love to draw people's attention to in the AI world, specifically as we're building, private local AI, is that you don't need these frontier models. Again, I'm talking about proprietary ones here, but you can pull tiny small language models to your computer and use them directly now, and it will probably do quite a good job of what you'd need it for. If you need it to draft a social post or write a quick article, it will do that, very, very, very well. And this is part of the technology that we're working on.
And I think the reality is economics beat all when it comes to building. You're going to get all these startups all over the world, and they're going to be, sometimes some of them would be, bootstrapping very much like we are. So yeah, we're going to be using small models, cheaper models, and experimenting with that side of things. We're not going to be sort of plugging into really expensive frontier models as much as we don't need to either. That's the point. So it's really interesting that I think a lot of the products that will be coming out over the years by startups from all over the world will likely be these smaller, cheaper models, because the driving force is the economic reality, if that makes sense. So I think that's quite interesting as well.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And the capabilities of these small models will be getting better and are actively and very quickly getting better and better, to the point where you, as the average user, unless you're a superpower user or doing something incredibly reasoning heavy, you're not going to notice the difference. I mean, I would argue that you're almost there now, that you're not going to notice the difference between a tiny model and a large model on basic tasks like writing a social post, for example. I don't think that you've noticed. So these capabilities are only going to get better, to the point where you're just simply not going to need one of these frontier models.
No.
So no, it's a very interesting thing. I think we're going to start to see the same pattern as we saw with computing back in the 80s and 90s, advertising these things, and also the same thing that we see within product marketing. Apple, for example, they have 3 Apple Watches. They have their entry level, their mid level, and their high end premium watch. 90% of people only need the entry level Apple Watch.
Yes.
And it's going to be, and this is repeated.
They never buy that one. They rarely buy that one.
Well, people do actually. People do.
But there's that marketing ploy, isn't there? We think, well, there's the basic. Maybe I should just pay a little bit more for that middle one, and then, but maybe if I pay a little bit more, I can get the really good one. So it's that.
I think Apple is an outlier. I think Apple is an outlier because they have a sort of a cult-like following. But it's true across the board, is most people don't really go for the mega high-end version of it, because, to be honest with you, the middle and low-end ones, quote unquote, are very good still, very high quality, and we're going to see a similar trend. That's a trend I'd like to see as well. People spend so much money on AI. AI companies are spending so much money on their models, and I'd love to see a better focus on open source small model development.
And we'll talk there. Definitely. And think about the products and what we're going to see as things build out. I guess we're going to see a future where products will have small models because they do the job, they're more efficient, and they cost less. So that's great. But effectively, what we'll possibly see is, within the products, lots of models, lots of small models, rather than one big expensive model, all doing different specific tasks that may be required within that product. So it's almost like a conveyor belt of small micro models doing lots of things when they're called upon.
Yeah, I was going to say, I think it could take many forms. I think we're going to probably more likely, that is definitely a thing, and I'll talk about that in a second, but I think we're also going to see like a layer of abstraction going on, where you're going to know less and less about the model that you're using underneath as a consumer. It'll probably run on your device, so it will be private, but you'll also have sort of these orchestration tools that route users' requests, understand what a user wants, and decides, do I need a heavier lifting model for this? Do I need a frontier model, or do I need or can I just offset this task to a smaller model that will do just as good a job? So I think there will be this automatic routing around for a minute. But again, as these small language models get better, you might not even need that anymore. You'll just need one small model on your phone that can do everything generally well. Another thing that we've obviously spoken about, is this idea of marketplaces being able to download and utilize different models and functions for those models depending on your use case. So you can almost Lego brick your solution. I think this is a really fascinating idea, and I definitely think it will be something. I think it'll have to be non-technical for most people. There's still so much technical jargon going around and technical expertise needed to use these models locally and add bolt-ons and tools, and this is something at the software layer we're trying to solve and build more on. But yes, I think the idea that you can start off with a base model and then construct your own custom model with tools with different capabilities, I think that's a really interesting idea.
Interesting. So so what I guess the takeaway for everyone is potentially don't just read the headlines and be in awe and suck it into it, because there's a lot more depth and a different perspective sometimes, other than just it's all about big models and all about the headline grabbing
100%.
solutions. So it's interesting, very interesting. So 100%.
I think this my hope for a video like this is just to raise awareness for the path that AI development is going and these other avenues to explore. If you're even interested in AI, you don't even have to have loads and loads of technical knowledge. At the moment, it's a really interesting avenue to explore, is these smaller local models and what they can do.
Absolutely, particularly when it comes to sort of privacy and things like that, which we've talked about multiple times. And I'd encourage you to check out some of the videos where we talk about some of the privacy concerns that exist.
100%.
Absolutely. Listen, guys, let's
100%.
wrap up for now. Thank you so much for joining us. Let us know what you think in the comments. Say hi. And we'd love to get your take on it. Give us a like, subscribe, do all those amazing things. And we'll continue to bring you the latest in AI news and share our views. So catch you on the next one.
Cheers, guys.
Cheers.